I'd like to take you on a journey from where to here. I'm a creative director in an advertising agency not far from where we are here, actually, in Covent Garden. Sorry. And I am one of few. Not creative director, good God no, there's literally hundreds and thousands of those all around the world. I've got loads of those. But a female creative director. In London, the stats are running at 14% for female creative directors in advertising. In New York, the stats are even worse, they're at 11%. And the stats for girls within creative departments are actually running at 26%. So that's just a quarter of the creative department. All this in an industry that purports to be a mirror for our world. In an industry that says it reflects our world. Well, what do creative directors do? Creative directors, we create, we curate the ideas, we sow the seeds, we nurture them along the way, and ultimately, hopefully, create campaigns that you remember. We create these big moments of cultural change. You can thank us for Diet Coke breaks. You can think about Levi's, jumping through pools possibly, depending on your age. You can think of the Paralympics. You can think of meerkats. Yeah, sorry about that one. That's the world that we operate within. And just 14% of leadership level are female within this world. And yet in the world that we purport to reflect, 85% of spending is coming from us women. Now that's whether it's tech, whether it's auto, whether it's digital, whether it's DIY, for God's sake, not in my house, but anyway. Whether it's DIY, 85% is coming from the female wallet. And ultimately, the salary is mostly coming from women as well. And also within this world, we have 70% of women saying that advertising does not understand them. That's 70% of women saying where? Where are the brands that talk to me? Where are the brands that show insight into my life? Something is definitely not adding up in Adland. Well, why does it matter? We've got refugees, we've got Brexit, we've got Trump. What does advertising matter? Well, it matters because we create these big moments of cultural change. We are still the biggest broadcast industry. We create those moments for masses that people remember. And if women aren't being heard within this, then it should matter to you. It certainly meant that when I rose to a certain level, it mattered to me. I started saying where. Where are the brilliant brains that I studied with? Where are the girls that I graduated with? And if 70% are saying that women are saying that advertising doesn't understand them, what's the cost of this loss, of this brain drain? It's better for business as well, because particularly in my industry, but in every industry that you represent here today, it's understood that with greater diversity around the table, more brains coming from more experiences makes for greater creativity, which ultimately, and it's been proven, reflects on the bottom line, gives us a better bottom line. It's better for business. Lord Davies was quoted as saying in 2015 that we were only just beginning to discover the female quotient unleashed. Now, what we need is the voice for these missing people, these missing women at the top. We need the voice for this, the collective voice, our collective voice, for the 70% who are saying that advertising does not understand them. Now, I'm not here to do a personal journey of woe, not even slightly. I love Adland. It's all I've ever wanted to do. Sorry, someone's got to do advertising, and that's all I've ever wanted to do. I love it, and every day changes. You find out amazing, increasingly bizarre facts about things. You get to meet brilliant, dazzling, creative people, and you turn it into unsuspecting things you'd never, ever have imagined. You nurture that along the way, and it all comes from a tiny little sketch or a thought that comes from your head. I don't know many other industries that could do that. But whilst my journey has been good, that's not to say that it's right for all. The frequent enough to make a difference 2 a.m. pitch finishes have not made too much of an impact in my life because I've chosen not to have children. The sporting banter and the constant joking that goes on has actually come as second nature to me because I am super close to my older brother. I even played rugby for my uni. The overwhelming nature for advertising, it's an overwhelming male norm. So I see the girls slipping away as the sport chats begin. I see them heading home as the heavy drinking kicks in. It's all, different nature to them. And you can see that you even enter the creative department and you can get man smell. Yes, it is a real thing. Essentially, think Mad Men, but with less style and more beards. And you're just about there. Now, what I'm saying here is there is no malintent. They're not trying to do wrong. It's just the way things are. It's just the way things have been. But it's not good enough anymore. We need to dig a little deeper to discover where these brains are going. We need to discover what's happening along the way. Now, coming out of university, the numbers actually look peachy. 61% of grads are girls, and they're actually outstripping their male counterparts in the arts and design. However, from that 61%, we somehow just get to 14 at leadership level. Something's really not adding up in Adland. So let's walk a few steps along the way to find out where these points we might be losing the women. We might be losing these brilliant brains. Well, as we've heard, 26% of creative department probably means that the first face that you will see when you enter a room will be male. Now, the first face you see does make a difference. It will be that first little girl looking into the faces saying, where are the people that recognise where I come from? Where are the faces that I can emulate? Who is it that I can follow? Because we know that you cannot be what you cannot see. And the first face you see does make a difference. One global CCO of a massive advertising agency recently put her junior female creative team as the first call in any creative department recruitment. She immediately saw a difference. Different in every single way from the standard issue white male. Different ethnicities, different religions, different backgrounds. It's because we girls are a minority in the creative department, we are more used to seeing faces and hearing stories that are not like our own. Therefore, we see the potential in the wider mix. It's also a sad fact that in advertising, that boys are more likely to be hired on potential, and girls are hired on proof. What do I mean by this? Well, it means that when a bright young thing comes in to show her portfolio and meets a senior, or let's do it the other way around. So boys come in, and they come in to see their senior male creative team. That male creative team might see someone that reminds them of them when they were just graduating from university. He will say, oh my goodness, he's so enthusiastic. He reminds me of him. I will take a leap of faith that he will follow the trajectory that my course has also followed. Now, when our girls come in, they do not see a face that they recognise as their own. So that unconscious bias does not come into play. So the creative director or the senior creative team might look more deeply at their books, more deeply at their ideas, more deeply even their qualifications. They will look for proof. Small unconscious bias, but a big, big difference. Let's move on a little bit as well. So let's say, I know this lady here, so let's say Helen comes in, book full of brimming ideas. She's now happily, luckily, loving the advertising life. She's into heavy drinking. It's a lady after my own heart. And she's working away on every brief that comes across her desk. Now, what happens in Adland, it's most frequently seen on freelance call-outs. I'll give you a couple of recent examples. Female creative director required to work on big perfume launch. Female creative team required to work on beauty brand. Brave rock star to be right-hand man for creative director. Telling. What happens when we enter the creative department, what can tend to happen is clients or client projects can be assigned to specific teams. And therefore you get to work on them more and more and more. Now the girls might be given the warmer, fluffier briefs, because we're all warm and fluffy, right? So they might have the beauty brands. They might have that tampon ad, chance to break out those roller skates. Brilliant. Opportunity they've been waiting for. Or they might be given charity, because, ladies, we care, don't we? So That's the opportunities, and that's the brief that they'll be given. If we then step aside and look at, say, Klaus, he also joined. He has also been working hell for leather in the agency, and he has also been doing it the best he possibly can on every brief that comes across his desk. However, here, we might see a different mix of briefs. We might see sports brands, car brands, booze brands, banks even. Now, what the difference here is that the, as I've termed them, the warmer, fluffier briefs are less likely to break out of their sector. So they're less likely to want to make a bigger splash. That means budgets will be smaller, and that ultimately means that our agency ambitions will ultimately be lower. Compare that to sports, auto, tech, any of those really gutsy things. They want volume, they want the splash. So you'll already start to see that a different mix of briefs, even if they are both being hugely successful and changing the lives of their clients, will actually have a different effect. And say, for example, an opportunity arises. You know, Ridley Scott comes into town and he's looking for just one creative to work with him. And we get Helen and Kat to go forward. Sorry, Kat, Klaus, you've just changed sex. Sorry about that. To go forward and present their books. And now we will actually see the difference. Because whilst Helen's book is successful and shows brilliant campaigns, ultimately they might be warmer and fluffier. Whereas Klaus will have that bigger, more far-reaching, and be read as a far more brave creative. So again, we're already putting him on the road to becoming that brave rock star that we heard about before. So again, small unconscious bias, big difference. Because typecasting briefs to girls creates typecast books. Books means portfolio, sorry, in my language. And ultimately, that we're letting girls down. Girls are being limited without even knowing. They're just plugging away, as any junior creative would. But they're having their creativity limited by the briefs that they are being put upon. So it's not actually just where are the creative girls, but it's actually where are the opportunity to develop them. Let's move on. Luckily, both Klaus and Helen are still in the ad land. They're not alcoholics yet, we get there later. And at the end of every month, there's a big collective creative meeting where the whole department gets together in order to share ideas. Now, Helen shares an idea, but is unheard. So Klaus repeats the idea in order that it can be heard by the chief creative officer. Now, unfortunately, this means that the idea is misattributed to Klaus. Now we can see he's a fine, upstanding sort of a chap, so he's sure to say, but that was Helen's idea. Unfortunately, it will already be associated in the mind of the Chief Creative Officer with Klaus. So that when the opportunity arises for the next promotion or the next big project, whose name do you think will come first? It also is the difference that we all know of. We can use the same words, we can use the same language, but how it is heard is different. When men are assertive, they are driven. When women are assertive, senior women especially, they are pushy, confrontational, bitchy even. You know, and hopefully through this we start to see how those numbers erode from that amazing 61% down to the 26, down to just 14. And it's not just Adland. As much as I love it, I wouldn't bore you to tears with it all the time. So it's everyone in this room, it's every industry that you work in and everything that we touch from today. Well, every day actually. There's a paucity of women at the top. There's a lack of women at the top. We hear about it in politicians. We hear about it constantly in the FTSE 500 on boards. You know, if you think of the furor this week, the amazement that John Lewis actually put a woman at the top. Oh my God, what are they doing? It's all taken differently. And yet, in our everyday world, in our everyday lives, we don't need to stop and ask, where are the creative women? We meet them every day. Bright, brilliant, creative brains surround us. So, I suppose it seems strange, doesn't it? Asking the question of where, when actually we are surrounded by the answer. I'm saying we need to move from where to here. For me, there was no epiphany. There was no sort of railing against the wind, no shaking of fists, no, enough already. It was basically just a set of realizations. Realization that my brilliant creative partner had to cut down her hours, whilst her equally creative husband stayed at 5 days a week. The realization that when I spoke in a room, I was not speaking as a single creative senior person. I was speaking for gender. And the realization that I was bored of being proud of stamping out the C word in agency spaces, and even more bored of having to explain why I objected to it in the first place. It was these simple realizations that it fell to me. It was these realizations that led me to join forces with another female creative director to become a voice for Creative Equals. Creative Equals is a not-for-profit that provides tools for ad agencies to attract, train and retain women at every stage of their career ladder. It was this realization that led me to champion an initiative called the Girlhood within my ad agency. Now, the Girlhood provides pathways for girls from non-traditional backgrounds to enter advertising. It was this realization that led me to put myself forward to lead a project with the amazing Girl Effect in Rwanda. The Girl Effect is absolutely astounding. They are trying to change the value placed upon girls throughout Africa so that they are seen as more than just homemakers and mothers, so that they can actually have any aspiration, acquire some skill, have some hope, hopefully let that aspiration shine, and maybe make it into a career. Here they are. Here I am. Here I am. Here is where we need to be. It's no longer enough to do the talking. Sorry, Ted. We need to be active and change. We need to move from where to here. Here is about visibility. Here is about belonging. And most importantly, here is a beacon for others to follow. And here, I haven't said enough yet, I have two asks. To the women in the audience, be visible. Be here. Whatever industry you are in, opt in, lead meetings, write notes, write journos, do whatever you can to have a voice. Speak up, have opportunities, take those opportunities. And if you opt in to do something that you cannot fulfill on, for whatever reason, we know life gets in the way, replace yourself with a female face. It's our duty to be here. And to the men in the room, I say have vision. View the women and girls that you meet as you would your daughter. Share that path of potential with them, not of proof. I believe it's only through positive action and all of us, at whatever stage of the journey we are in, being visible, that ultimately we will change the perception and possibly change the reality. So today, we've moved from where are the creative women to here are the creative women. And here, I say to you, where will you show up next? Where will you next say here?